Yep. Well, it's getting a little bit intimate here, so let me make a call for people outside. Guys outside, you're going to miss two of the most high-profile French entrepreneurs on the tech scene. You have 30 seconds to get in. Would that work? We'll see. Anyway, the topic today is an ever-going one when you're talking about France in particular and Europe in general. You know that maybe a bit provocative, well-known entrepreneur Xavier Niel has labeled France as a tax haven recently. That might be pushing it a bit over the limit, but still interesting. But what we should ask ourselves is can France be a business heaven, or it is just the lifestyle country that most of the world tries to keep us with the tag? So to debate that today, I'm very honored to welcome two very accomplished entrepreneurs pushing different models, one from California, one from Paris, France. So the first one founded Blablacar, actually founded covoiturage.fr back in the days, and then realized that there was probably something better to do with the brand and created that great brand that everybody knows of now called Blablacar. And the second is the very well-known founder of Californian technology company Docker that has done a fantastic job at becoming the standard for cross-platform applications. Please welcome and give a round of applause for Frédéric MAZZELLA and Solomon HYKES. Gentlemen, welcome on stage. So as you can see, this is supposed to be a duel between where you should set up your company and can you do it differently, etc. So maybe we can start with a few words on your companies, maybe not telling the whole story, but giving a few highlights on achievements, foundation, where you stand, and the fantastic numbers that you've reached now. Who wants to start? We start with the guest. So Solomon.
Hi, everybody. My name's Solomon. I'm the founder of Docker. Docker is, as you perfectly explained, a technology company. We build tools for programmers. So we help developers create better applications faster, more efficiently. And the way we do that is we help them use a technology called containers. And what containers do is they standardize a way to package your application into small components that can run anywhere. So if you're developing an application that has to run across many machines, across the internet, multiple clouds, you package it up and distribute it using Docker, and that makes your application more scalable, more portable, etc. So what we've managed to do, we haven't invented the technology, but we've managed to convince every major technology vendor out there, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, etc., to adopt our standards. And on top of that standard, we provide tools for programmers. So the analogy we use is shipping containers.
So for non-developers, maybe a few words. When did you found the company? How much did you raise? What are the numbers of millions and millions of downloads? And
I founded the company in 2008 in Paris. And then in 2010, we left France and relocated to San Francisco. And across the life of the company, I think we raised $160 million. And we're at about 200 employees now, growing fast. The metric we track the most is number of containers transferred through our container marketplace. So I think we just passed the 700 million containers downloaded mark. Yeah.
700 millions?
Yeah.
Right, so not sure I get the whole point of it, but 700 million of anything is a big number. So, Fred, tell us a bit about your story.
So what we do is we provide a solution for drivers to share the cost on their rides with passengers going the same way. So we provide the service in 19 countries for more than 20 million people. So today the service is being used from New Delhi to Mexico and in most European cities and in Russia and a lot of other countries. We are a team of 360 people scattered in 12 offices. We've raised last summer a round of more than $100 million. And we're headquartered in France. And given your question, I would argue that you can start a company anywhere. Basically, today for a startup, it can start anywhere. The reason why we started in France is simply because actually that's still today our most advanced market, and so that's where we experiment a lot with the product as well to make it progress. And so it's very normal for us to be based in France and to be HQ'd here and to be HQ'd in Europe. But if the activity had been taken up somewhere else, we'd be somewhere else. So I would say that you can start the company anywhere as long as you think global from day one.
Oh, so you want to talk about Revient Léon, but we can get to that later. But so to compete with the 700 million, how many rides?
Wow. Well, it's 10 million travelers per quarter. So I don't know, if you multiply by the number of quarters, we'll get there. It's 15 million downloads of our apps. The thing is, what we do as well is, ride sharing is really something that transports you from CDA to CDB. The average distance is 300 kilometers in between the cities, so that's the rides people do. So it's something where you will spend a few hours, so like a million or 10 million or 50 million or a few hours are a lot of hours. So if we count of hours or minutes, that would be hundreds and hundreds or billions of minutes.
Excellent, fantastic. So let's start straight with the topic. I've been reading about Docker, and one of the readings was, Solomon and the team relocated to the US, and part of that reason, maybe not the only one, but part of that reason was the funding. So is that something you confirm, and how do you think it influenced the story?
Yeah, so we did not have a master plan. We didn't have a big strategy when it came to which country to start. I started in France because that's where my contacts were. I went to school in France. Yeah. It was a pragmatic decision. Our first customers were in France, and then you're right, we couldn't find funding in France, and then we found funding in California, so we went to California. It's really that simple. I think after the fact we realized, in our case, it does make more sense to grow the company in California because it's a product for developers, for people who write software. And there are people who create software everywhere, but today at least, there is real thought leadership, and there's a huge concentration of programmers in California. So all of our first large-scale customers and users and partners were all within 5 miles of us, 5 kilometers. Can't believe I started using miles. But I think you can be pragmatic about it. I hope companies like Docker start appearing in France too. I'd love to help that.
All right. So funding, difficult topic. Do you want to comment, or 100-something million? I know you don't comment on rumors, you told me, but people, I've been reading the papers. People talk of lots of money on the table. So is that the situation has changed from 5 years ago? Is that business model?
Yeah, I think the situation has changed because really the ecosystem has been evolving a lot in the past 5 years. It is now really possible to raise from basically almost anywhere on Earth, but specifically we've seen that in Europe, to raise any amount from 100,000 to 100 million. We now show that this is possible. The only thing that the company needs to have in order to be able to raise mega rounds is to think global and to have a real traction on some of the markets. Once you've showed that you have traction on your market and you have a solid business model, then you can raise money from the VCs who actually travel the entire planet several times a month to make sure they don't miss any good opportunity in any country. So you just have to make yourself visible from them, or they'll find you anyway if your business is beginning to kick in. And think global, structure the entire team so that it becomes global. Today at Blablacar, we have 29 nationalities. We have people everywhere, and we really have an international culture, and I think that's part of the game. That's part of the thing that makes the company really become global, and that's what that's what has changed basically. There's also the ecosystem of the incubators, all the accelerators. We have lots of very good ones in Paris now. We see that it's changing a lot. So from the funding ecosystem to the actual entrepreneurial ecosystem, things are really changing. And we are beginning to prove that we are able to create unicorns from Europe. We have 40 of them in Europe now, and it's really something that has changed in the past years.
Right, so we tick the funding box, the entrepreneur box. So Solomon mentioned the ecosystem and partnerships and platforms. And so, is that the next challenge for you guys, for Europe? Be closer to, I don't know, Google's R&D, Amazon partnerships?
Well, there are several things. The simple fact that we actually have this kind of event here is a proof that the ecosystem is evolving, that there is more and more sharing between the companies, between the VCs, well, the investors and the entrepreneurs, that all this is changing. I mean, an event like this only a few years ago was not even possible, not even thinkable. So it's really something that has evolved, and now there is a real ecosystem of entrepreneurs who share their stories, who share their experience in order to grow this ecosystem and make sure that we all know how to grow scale-ups and to grow international companies as fast as we can. So this has changed. There is a lot of sharing now. There is a real ecosystem. I'm truly convinced that it's only the beginning, and that it will develop a lot more in the few years to come.
All right, so let's do a bit of a positive exercise. Solomon, you've set up your company in the US. What can you imagine that you would have found maybe better here than what you found in the US?
Well, I can tell you what I'm coming for now. We're opening an office in Paris. And,
excellent.
You know, there's a lot of amazing engineers. We're a very engineering-heavy company. So being able to grow our research and development department right here in France is amazing. I would say, had I found the money to pay for engineers in France in the first place, I would have maybe stayed here the whole time. And by the way, to talk about founding, you know, our initial problem was a seed funding problem, right? An early stage funding problem for a very early, immature technology with maybe the prospect of becoming a product one day. That's a very specific niche. So I don't think necessarily our story is a very good example for many other companies. I would say, yeah, the talent, the quality of the people. You know, there's very smart, talented engineers and professionals in Silicon Valley, but usually they come there from somewhere else, and you have to fight with thousands of other companies to get them. I think that's a huge asset of not being stuck in the Silicon Valley bubble. And I would say engineers are just as smart and talented here. That's definitely not a monopoly of California.
So when Docker is the de facto standard for all that cross-platform deployments, how can it help the European ecosystem? Can we hope that we find some companies working over Docker?
Yeah, there's a lot. Actually, there's a Docker user group here in Paris. It's the biggest outside of the US. It's 1,000 people. There's a big event tomorrow at Société Générale, 200 people. Société Générale is going to talk about how they use Docker in production. There's some very large accounts talking about that. So hopefully being here, we can help encourage that. But separately from Docker, there are other companies like Docker that must exist. Software infrastructure to support companies like Blablacar, right? Blablacar uses software, they use technology to solve a real world problem. And we're further down in the supply chain, right? We provide specialized tools for innovative companies, and there's the need for more of those companies. I think it's a sign that the ecosystem is maturing, that it's possible now to have this next level of specialization. Right? I think it's a good time now.
All right, we have 45 seconds. Fred, do you want to say something about Revient Léon? You're a co-founder. Does that sound good to see that companies like Docker, we have people back and forth?
Yeah, just before saying a word on Revient Léon, I wanted to add to what's been said that actually we have super good engineers here in Europe and in France especially. We have super good people in marketing. What we are really learning to know to do now is to build global structures which build world-class products in the digital world. And this is what we have to build, so from the product side to the structuration of an HQ that does a digital company that reaches the entire world, and this is a bit different. So it's really the end. And that's how it works. So for Revient Léon, it's an initiative that shows that we are now able to build worldwide companies in the digital world from Europe and from France, and that it's a signal for all the people abroad to know that France is back in the game.
Absolutely. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for making us proud here and having the French flag bright all over the world. Please, big round of applause for Fred and Solomon. Thank you. Thanks.